So now it's recording. Now, okay, boom. Sending a signal. Boom. Hey, y'all. It is Trent Knox. Finally. No? Answer's no. The answer is no, you're not allowed to stream today. Why not? Why not today? Why can I not stream today? Yes, this is Trent Knox with the Trent Knox Show, and today we recap another event. Another event in the Trent Knox life, and that is the Thai Massage Jam. And what happened at the Thai Massage Jam? Well, really, nothing too interesting happened at the Thai Massage Jam. Um, Unfortunately, Knives was not able to show up, and neither was Brian Kern, but that's okay. We rocked on, Sebastian and Abraham and I. We rocked on. We shot for about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes, and we got a lot of coverage. We had Instagram live. We had social platforms live, and we really put that thing together. And I think that, 75% successful rate was good enough. We passed the test. We did pass the test. But I'd like to see that we get 100% on the test. So next time, I hope that the whole crew is able to show up and we can knock it out of the stadium home run big time. And I'm not exactly sure why we're having any skip frames. Not sure where the skip frames are coming from. Can't tell at all why we're having any skip frames. But I can definitely search and see if there's any processes executing that don't need to be executing. But maybe it's the challenge of going against the grain. Who knows? Who knows? But I gotta say that having spoken with Abraham last night for a few, maybe an hour or so, not just a few minutes, was pretty enlightening as far as what the state of the State of the Union is on what we call live streaming popularity, ranging from your everyday Twitch stream to your Mixer streams to your new, or well, not new, but your YouTube streams, your Facebook streams. We had a chat about D Live. We had a chat about caffeine. And once again, as always, thank you, Doug, for the host. And at the heart of it, we were trying to figure out essentially what does it take to be a what does it take to be a successful streamer, and what does it mean to be a successful live streamer? What kind of time does it take? What kind of efforts does it take? What kind of creative does it take to be a streamer? Do you have to be an artist to be a streamer? Are you an employee? Are you a contractor? And what does that entail for the average Joe? And it seems that most folks, and I cannot tell you why I'm skipping frames on the live stream. It's just kind of very fluctuating. It's not an internet issue. It doesn't appear to be a. Looks like it's just minor issues. But anyway, the process and what it takes to be a streamer can be quite difficult in figuring out whether being a streamer is right for you. And we talked about it for about, like I said, an hour, talking about Twitch streamers. We didn't really, I didn't get him to dive into the overall streaming industry or content creator industry as far as Facebook content creators, because it's a little bit more difficult to discover people on Facebook, YouTube, and whatnot. I happen to be watching the YouTube streams and seeing what's successful over there, and with what's successful on YouTube as a platform, it's the a little bit older demographic as far as what they're promoting on YouTube. What's up? Who? Man, I can't see on that screen. Old mate Shay. Hey, bro. I request a song. Can I request a song? You can, so long as it doesn't. It's not copyrighted. So then I can play it on stream, and I don't have to worry about getting demonetized or having the video taken down. So I would greatly appreciate if you chose a non-copyrighted song, and then I could play it. But going on, well, what I was saying is that the other platforms, it's a little bit harder to discover streamers. There's not particular sorting features or figuring out who's new on the platform, who's doing things that are interesting, doing things that are creative. Mostly because the people that become successful on the platforms, they want to retain their audience, and in doing that they kind of do some things that are ethically questionable, and they put people in positions to where if they don't search for the people, then you might find that they're not it's not as easily discoverable. You can't just go out there, because they want to make sure that they're the people that are on the platform that are generating them revenue uh, continue to generate them revenue. So it's a bit of inside game, which I think will become illegal later on in the future when platforms are determined to be publishers instead of being determined as platforms. So the way that Twitch is behaving, and the way that Facebook is behaving, the way that YouTube is behaving, the way that, well, not so much Facebook. Facebook is taking the blunt end of the sword on this one. The way that YouTube is behaving, the way that Twitch is behaving, the way that Mixer's behaving, the way that Caffeine's behaving, the way that Ustream used to behave, the way that Justin TV used to behave. These live streaming platforms, they want to benefit the successful people on the platform. And in doing so, they often limit the features for other content creators to prevent them from growing their audience. And whether that's in a justified way or in an unjustified way, this is something that needs to be the conversation that needs to be had. And ultimately, they don't want to have the conversation because it leads to some people who are maybe successful on the platform, or who have friends on the development side that benefit financially from the this organization or nefarious things that go on within the platform. So ultimately, everyone wants to just have their voice, and successful or unsuccessful or new or old, everybody just wants to get a chance to be heard and to be an authority on a subject matter. Whether that's gaming, esports, equestrian arts, the yoga, fitness. It doesn't matter what industry that you are looking to break into or embark on as a new journey in your life. Everybody wants to be validated in that, and in order to get validation, you have to be discoverable. And if the platforms are trying to put their their money making content creators on a pedestal, and not drive innovation and new users and engagement, then practically the platforms are dead in the sense, because they become stagnant. And there's a word for this in programming that's not stagnant. I heard it before, but I can't remember. I heard it on a Harvard lecture. Um, but essentially, nothing new comes into the ecosystem on a regular basis, and so what they find themselves doing is not performing updates to the website regularly enough. And maybe that's due to understaffing on the platform side. But these things need to be addressed, and I believe they need to be addressed in the public so that we don't have um, people on the platforms behaving in such a way that the only thing that they say is kind of cannibalistic toward the platform. So their complaints are kind of first world problems. This is something that actually I'm gonna take that from what Abraham said, that the streamers on platforms end up just complaining about water cooler talk. What's going on, kind of the gossip of around the office, instead of talking about the overall industry. So it kind of becomes internalized, and that internalization leads to a overall collapse of the industry. Now there are certain individuals around that I admire. In the esports space specifically, I admire Devin Nash. Uh, I do admire, to a degree, Richard Lewis. I admire a couple of other people, but those two, for certain, their voices stand out to me, and I like to share their content within my network. And as I grow, if you're not familiar with Esports Business Network, uh, as I grow that platform and start to add more content to it, whether it's um, original content or the repurposing of, or using, stating my opinion, or monitoring, or listening to other people's opinions on other people's opinions, or whatever it may be, but keeping it professional to a degree. uh, I think that the specifically esports is in a good place. I do see a lot of negligence within the in the space, and I think I may be a culprit of that, and I hope that the test of negligence, with non-negligence, the test of non-negligence, I hope that are being responsible, I should say, the being responsible for the towards the esports industry, and being cognizant of cultural differences among uh, across the ever changing international landscape of esports, that I'm culturally cognizant of the local, foreign, national, domestic, all of those things in perspective, and that I don't end up finding myself in a position where I'm in someone else's backyard disrespecting their national or local scene, esports in specifically. But I think that what happens is that from my work in the esports, for as little as it is third party, um, that esports is isn't a ubiquitously defined industry. Uh, that means essentially some people include esports as in casual gaming, anything that's anything that has to do with competitive gaming, whether it's for a prize or not for a prize, is all coupled into esports. But I'd like to think that if we look at traditional sports, if we look at something like and this is much of the philosophy or psychology behind esports, is philosophy and psychology, and basically theory in general of esports, is that if we look at traditional sports like football, soccer, tennis, baseball, basketball, cricket, rugby, ice skating, ice hockey, all of traditional sports, and even including poker, Texas Hold'em to be specific, or blackjack, or craps, or anything that can be defined, bowling, um, and I don't want to miss anything, skateboarding, anything like that. Skateboarding is more of an independent thing, less team oriented, but let's stick to team sports. Even though there are some solo esports, let's stick to team sports like football, soccer, baseball, for some examples. There are non-professional or amateur leagues, teams, and we don't differentiate that from being a part of the sport or sports in general. So in some ways, I guess, so long as not even so long as um, throwing the football around can be can be considered a sport. Uh, the organization of that would be determined something else. Um, so I think maybe esports is a more uh, a broader has a broader definition. Although for financial reasons and um, for reasons that people get paid, esports is generally professional competitive gaming. Um, and that's kind of ubiquitously defined or universally understood. The the issue is that at scale internationally, business between countries isn't always conducted appropriately. Uh, I believe that due to the fact that some of these platforms have begun behaving more like publishers rather than platforms, we ultimately find ourselves um, being subjugated to two categories. And I'm going to use uh, two examples to make it these these two these two nouns or adjectives as per word they are as per they are could be exchanged for other words, but these two words I'm going to use are viewer and streamer. Although you could look at it as consumer and producer. Uh, and the the organizational structure between uh, the platform, the streamer and the viewer can often become uh, a typhoon of sorts or a tornado of mistakes. And unless those mistakes are regularly communicated um, in the public discourse, which would be the viewers are communicating with the streamers, and the streamers are also communicating with the publishers in this aspect or platforms, because it seems to pivot. If we look at the triangle of choices, and that we can only if we make a choice and we go further to the right or further to the left, we end up finding ourselves, if it goes towards the streamer platform side, as it becoming more publisher streamers. And then we become what essentially becomes is publishers and producers. Versus if it goes towards the other direction, more to the right, we have a platform and viewers, which viewers then become creators. But if we stay in the middle and the conversation is on if we stay in the center of this, and I can draw it if you would like me to, but I'm not going to, we consistently have the same definition. But if what happens is it all goes to the top, if it's all viewers, there's no platform. If it's all platform, then there's no viewers or streamers. If it's all streamers, there's no platform. It's not successful. So what do? I don't know. I can only assume that what we possibly could do. And then what we possibly could do is create a public discourse and stop alienating certain streamers, certain platforms, and certain viewers. Because the system of repercussions for streamers, viewers, and platforms doesn't seem to be being regulated the correct way. And it's up to streamers, it's up to the platform and viewers to come to a concise agreement on what should and shouldn't be done on the platforms. With that being said, I think that in the long term of streaming is that partnered streamers, or whatever you want to call it, will ultimately have to become disconnected from that language, legalese or whatever, in my opinion, because the platforms will be regulated. So at least in the United States, they'll be regulated as publishers, because you can't put a platform out that differentiates and treats people differently. You ultimately cannot suffocate the freedom of speech in the United States. Now, these platforms, I don't believe that they were built to upend the United States. I think they were built to provide a voice to different people across the in the United States. And ultimately, countries all different sorts of countries look to adopt that sort of freedom. So they participate. But what happens is they don't live the American lifestyle or the democratic lifestyle, and they find themselves um, doing things that aren't best for the regulatory bodies in America, in the United States. So these sorts of behaviors, they need to be changed to reflect what our legal, executive, and or our judicial, executive, and congressional bodies believe is right from wrong based on two documents that we have that we know are that work over time: the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And those things do have amendments over time. And some of those things need to change. But ultimately, we can't have this deluge of activity that completely that does not go by the rules. We have a rules set, and the game is played that way for a reason. Now, people may, this sort of new technology has changed the game, and in many ways, it's a good thing. But in many ways, it needs to be regulated to a degree. And I think we have a good system to regulate it by. And not to say that these systems, if they so choose to move out of the local American market and into international markets and separate themselves completely from the United States. Let's say they go to Canada, they go to Mexico, they go to Africa, they go to Europe and European countries, they go to Asia, wherever they go outside of the United States, they are regulated by those national governments. But I think people seem to forget that there are fundamental legal systems in America that are not difficult to understand. The issue is that people don't, the individuals, whether they're American or they're U.S. citizens or not, aren't educated on these things in a sophisticated way. The way that they're educated on them is, at this time, below par. But we're not setting the bar very high as far as our national security and nationalism is concerned. We've set the bar very, very, very low. It doesn't take a lot to understand the U.S. Constitution. It doesn't take a lot to understand the Bill of Rights. And it doesn't take a lot to understand U.S. history. But, whether you're wherever you find yourself in life now, you can look to many reasons why we're here now, trying to figure out how we can get back to or get to a state that seems more stable, seems to have been more stable. As things have changed culturally over time, we've seen America completely get rid of indentured servitude and get rid of slavery. Now, you guys can argue that the capitalist system is just um, a guise for the overall economic caste system, but if you, and this is where I become more moderate, and some people even maybe call me from the right a leftist, is that there is a behavior that is right and wrong, and that seems ironic to a certain person, because they think that everyone should be out there for themselves, uh, and I don't agree, because at the end of the day, people need to have assistance, from whatever country they come from. And it is both the responsible party and the irresponsible party to cognizantly know what the end goal of the relationship is. Both parties are irresponsible, and both parties are responsible at the same time. The question about the party is, at the end of the day, are we going to recoup, and are we going to recycle? Recoup, recycle. Those two things are extremely important. And redistribute is also extremely important. Redistribution, recouping, and recycling. But those three things are aside from curation, development, and innovation. Or you could say creation instead of curation. But recycling, recouping, and redistribution are kind of left-leaning thought processes. But they're not ultimately, when you look at it from a moderate perspective. It's kind of a middle of the road perspective. And then there's also what I said, which may be towards the right leaning, because I'm a proponent of progressive attitude, and leaning toward the libertarian side of it. Not to say that there aren't social aspects. Creation, innovation, and development. Those three things are probably most likely right-leaning at this time. Just from the cultural appropriation standpoint, the Me Too movement, the gender equality or inequality aspects. This belief system may be leaning toward the right a little bit. So I don't know. The left is gonna say I lean to the right, and the right is gonna say that I lean to the left. And I don't know. I particularly want to think that I'm moderate, probably a libertarian. I believe that we are due our liberties, and that in at least the United States and the countries that we cooperate that cooperate with us and we cooperate with them, that we are on our best behavior, and that we look to make those places that we go to a better place when we bring when we visit them, and that we don't look to degrade those countries, and we don't look to those looking to be included in our culture to degrade our culture. So I think this is something that we really need to take the perspective of that and apply it to the online culture, the online streaming platforms, because that is the epicenter. The live streaming world right now is the epicenter of creation in the moment. I'm sure there will be another form of of creation that comes in the future, and it allows you to express yourself in a different way. But right now, video, audio, and photography are the pinnacle of creation. In the moment, there's there you get both order and chaos at the same time. You get both good and bad. Um, Unfortunately, we need to figure out how to be more moderate, middle of the road, and less left, less right leaning, good or bad leaning, wrong or right leaning. We have to figure out how to do the right thing, because we want to live. I would assume, unless you have some sort of you know fetish for failure, or a fetish for uh, destruction, or for just like a completely, we would call this a mental handicap, uh, or cognitive dysphoria, if, or just literally, if I was to use non-politically correct terms, retarded um, belief system. And I think people would concisely, I think most people would would arrive that this is that behavior that would be exhibited in that case is not logical, and is not sound of mind, and is not nowhere near ethical, so we cannot call it emotionally valid. Uh, the behavior to wish destruction on things. But that being said, the people that don't see that their systems are broken, and they think that just because their friends are kissing their ass, or want to get some money out of them, or whatnot, whatever it may be, they need a dose of medicine, or they need new perspective, uh, and they need to see a doctor, which you you can see any kind of doctor that you wish. You can see any kind of doctor you wish. Some doctors may show you the light to which the dark exists, or show you the dark to which the light exists. It may it depends upon the state of which you are existing. It it's circumstantial to your place that you are, and I know that I'm kind of going off in different directions, but I hope that this approach to explaining these things reaches people in a variety of different places. And I hope that mental health in general, my own included, as I progress down this journey in life, here I go with another progressive thing, is positive and enlightening, and happy and joyous and good. But I'm not going to, you got to take the good with the bad. And I know that Drake says he wants to take it without, but I would say, and I don't know whether he in particular is talking about rather take the bad without the good so that he can stay in an emotional state for his artistry. But that's just me taking a perspective and analyzing. I appreciate you, S5566, for telling me to have a lovely day. So there's a lot that is going on in the world, and the emotional state of people, their their mindset, their mental state, their the I just completely blanked out on the word that people use. Their mental health may be brought up to question. My own mental health at times is brought up to question. Sometimes by my family, sometimes by friends, and sometimes by the random passerby. But ultimately, we all have to kind of just work together and figure out how we can use communication, like podcast, like live streaming, like photography, like copy, to tell the best future that we possibly can. And in telling that best future, we are going to have some mistakes is one way to put it, is one way. Broken is another way to put it. But it's important to know how to recycle, recoup, of course, and redistribute. And I don't think you can do that without being authentic to humanity. Too many of these sales oriented things where product, service, solution is monetarily or financially, I should say, fiscally monetized. Is that or that's not right? Is It's just monetized. Okay, too many sales, solutions, and services that are monetized. People use what I would consider nefarious marketing tactics. And I hear people like Neil Patel talk about this, and I think that's unethical. But I think that a lot of people at this point are returning. The return answer is, I say, do you think that's unethical? And they say, what is ethics? And then I say, well, what is real? And they say, what is real? And I ultimately think, well, I hope that there are people, real people, behind the masks, behind these aliases. I hope that there isn't a system that promotes fraudulent activity or nefarious actions. But I suspect that these platforms, are just trying to, get the money while they can, and and get out. They're willing to do the thing that is unethical in order to survive. And I think that's that's a part of why the capitalist system doesn't work, is because people will do whatever it takes, maybe even at the sacrifice of others, to achieve and obtain the things that they wish they had, or their dreams, or their desires. And it can get to a point where it's kind of well, it is sad and depressing that the world is like this, that we can't have a better system where people aren't, I don't know, just doing these sorts of things to each other. And just maybe one day we'll be able to look and say that it makes sense, the things that we do, as a collective, as a community of people, whether that's local, regional, national, international, intergalactic, wherever you may be, even if you're on another planet. um, that we just are doing good, and that the creator, or the creators, or the creation that created, um, looks at us as good, and not as a bad. These are very elementary words, good and bad, but I think we need to simplify things to a degree. A lot of the times we make things bigger than they need to be, or I should say, we over over describe things to with $5 words, when a nickel will take will suffice, will work, I guess. I, I'm I'm doing I'm doing it now, and I'm looking to be more simple in my language, so that it's better understood by the masses, rather than finding myself subjugated to a class of people who think that they're better than others. I don't think I'm any better than anyone, and I think that what I've said in this podcast, things in this podcast may be inaccurate. I Unless I have a conversation with someone, which feel free to call in at 512-539-0442 to be on the show in the last 15 minutes of this hour as I wrap it up. That I'm challenged in my belief systems, in my thought process, in my understanding of what is going on. The question that most of us are asking is, what is going on? I feel that a lot of people are kind of surfing the wave of life, but they're, you know, they're not sure if they have the best surfboard. But then they see their friends just got the latest surfboard technology, and they, this is the first introduction of being introduced to a product that will completely change their lives. It would be good to have more exposure. And going back to the conversation that Abraham and I had last night was, should I put more focus into myself and less focus into others? Should I be more concerned about my image and my appearance and growth, because I've got a pretty good idea of what I want, how I want to structure my image, because the same person that I am offline is the same person online. I don't differentiate the two, and I don't create aliases. And even if I did create an alias, you would see that alias is still me. Whether even the aliases that other people create for me are me. Because my brand is my brand. And it goes anywhere, it's me. Even if it's someone else, it's me. Even you are me. That's how I see it. That's because ultimately we all come from the same creator. And we all come, whether you're an alien, a foreigner, anybody who you are, we all come from the same place. And as Fractured Bark has said, sometimes you gotta appreciate life. You just gotta appreciate it. And I agree. I think that we don't give enough. We don't think about life a lot. Most of what we think about is how to prevent death. Most of what we do is, life is winning. If you ask Gary Vee, he'd tell you 1 in a trillion or something like that. And that's winning. And some people will call death losing. At least in this context. But we don't, when we think about how to make more money, how to, be more romantic, how to do all of these things, we usually think of it in the sense of how to prevent something, less than how to do something different, be something different, do change, enact change, upend the negative and bring positive in. And anyway, in this last couple of minutes for the podcast, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. If you listen to this on the live feed, or if you listen to this on the audio version over on anchor.fm/Trent Knox. If you'd like to contribute to this and help this podcast continue, you can become a monthly contributor over on anchor.fm/Trent Knox/support. And for as little as $1, you can help me continue making these podcasts, these rants, whatever you want to call it. And in addition to that, if you want to see my notes as I work through some of these things I'm thinking about in my work and everything that's going on as far as being a videographer, a producer, a social media manager, all the things that I'm kind of figuring out as I go, head on over to patreon.com/Trent Knox, and you can contribute $5 a month to see my notes. And potentially in the future, as I go, and if this is the way that it turns out, um, you'll see more exclusive live streaming content on Patreon. You'll see exclusive videos on Patreon. You'll see different things within that $5 subscription service. Maybe some educational resources for how to be like me or be like the guys that I look up to. Um, and shout out to Knives Monroe for kind of being a dick sometimes, and as well as Brian Kern, Common Chaos Podcast. Shout out to Abraham Boosh Life. If you go to www.com or www Austin Live and Local, austinliveandlocal.com/podcast, you'll see all of the podcasts that are local to the Austin region, and you can go in there and listen to different podcasts like Boosh Live, Knives Monroe versus the podcast, Common Chaos Podcast, the Austin Live and Local podcast, Trent Knox Show. Let me think. You can also see the Tired Girls Club podcast that I put up there. That's Brian's partner in crime, I should say. Not girlfriend or whatever the status is at this time. Becca Manley and her friend Jamie, and I forget what her last name is, Lechuga or something like that, which would be like salad, but that's not. I don't think that's what it is. That might be someone else. Yeah. So I think that's everything that I needed to say in the closing of this podcast. And if you would like to work with me, you can go to TrentKnox.com, search my website, and get all of my social medias are on TrentKnox.com. Just head on over to TrentKnox.com and check that out. If you would like to work with me, send me an email, Trent@TrentKnox.com, and we can do something. If you're in the Austin area or you're abroad, or wherever you are, just send me an email and we can look and see. I specialize in live streaming, mobile live streaming, and I specialize in podcasting. The rig that I have a variety of different rigs for podcasting, or a variety of different rigs for on location live streaming, and I can do bigger productions with multicam and switchers. I have experience in these things. I've done it for myself for about 2 years, and I've been doing it overall for about I've done it for myself, I should say, for about 5 to 7 years. How many years are we at now? For 7 years I've been trying to figure this out. And then for a couple of years, 2 years to 3 years, I've been doing it for other people, other companies, and that's live streaming and podcasting, photography to a degree, videography, music videos, these type of things. You can check that out at TrentKnox.com as well. So once again, thank you very much for listening to this podcast, whether you viewed it on the live feed or you're listening to it on audio. I hope that you have a great day and know that there is a future with you in it. Take it seriously. And I think that's the last thing I want to say. Appreciate y'all.